Welcome to A State of Mind. I am so happy to be bringing you a new episode of this podcast because I know the power of conversations to change lives. You can learn more about each episode in the show notes below, and you can support our podcast by checking out our sponsors with the links below. It would also help us out a lot if you left us a review or gave us a comment or just shared about this with your friends and family. Hello, Jason. Welcome to A State of Mind podcast.
Thank you so much, Julian. Great to be here. Honored to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And how would you like to just introduce yourself to folks here?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you. You know, I listen to your YouTube and I love your curiosity. You're really interested in learning yourself, and that comes through, and you have the courage to have different guests on. So that's why I really love your show, and I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's cool to connect because we've been messaging a bit through Messenger online, and you've been sharing about some ways to understand the Buddhist teachings. So I'm excited to dive in. I guess I'm curious how you came to be interested in this kind of stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's see. As a kid, I was always very curious, like with the Kung Fu movies, like I was always questioning things and really like always thinking, like feeling like I'm in a Matrix, basically, like Neo, and then, I actually had panic attacks from that actually. And I wound up discovering at 16, like psychology, like Freud and Jung in high school. And I was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for, And that led me into the 60s, like the hippies and all that kind of LSD stuff. And I was just like, I'm going to university and I'm going to become a psychologist and I'm going to solve the problem of panic attacks and I'm going to like expand the minds of people. And then I was really motivated in undergrad, and I was doing research, and I just quickly realized that it was very bureaucratic and they really weren't exploring the questions I was interested in mind. Mm-hmm. But I was already like getting ready for graduate school and I just didn't know what else to do. And this was the year the Matrix movie came out. Two things happened. The Matrix movie, and I was working in a research lab in the summer, a psychology research lab, really depressed. And I'm driving home and I'm listening to a college radio station, and this guy's just talking and he's like literally answering the questions I've been asking. And because, I'm about to graduate, and I'm like, so wait, I have to like work 50 hours a week, and this is the purpose of life, like you work and then you get 2 weeks off a year. So, and then I'm listening to this guy and I'm like, who is this guy? And I just kind of forgot about it. The next Friday I'm driving home, and then I'm like, okay, I got to find out who this guy is. It's 1999. So I look up the radio station. I found out it was Alan Watts.
Okay, I was wondering if that's who it was, because he has he has all of his talks available for free, and they're on the radio. And I used to listen to him on the radio too, actually.
Awesome. Yeah. So I just went to the bookstore, library, got everything I could on him. I found out he was into Zen in Japan. So I was like, all right, I got to go to Japan. So I finished my undergrad requirements for psychology. So I started taking all the Japanese classes and Buddhist classes. I went to SUNY Albany. So we had actually a pretty good Japanese department. So I'm studying Buddhism academically. And my teacher's I was like, okay, I'm going to graduate and then go to Japan and become a monk after I graduate, But my teacher's like, why don't you go next year? Like, you can get a scholarship. So I wound up going during my senior year to Japan, international school, and I didn't really meet the Buddhist master I was looking for. I thought I would just be like the Kung Fu movies, walk into a monastery. So that didn't happen, but I wound up meeting people from all over, came back to New York, did the corporate thing.
And did you spend time in a Zen monastery in Japan?
Not exactly. I mean, I visited them, but no, I wound up partying, getting a girlfriend, and really and really studying hard. Because I had it ingrained in my head. My parents were like, "You're gonna graduate. You're gonna work hard. You're gonna make money." I was really strict parents in that way. So it was like, I got to learn Japanese so I could be because I wasn't going to be a psychologist. Okay, I'll be a Japanese translator. And so I was studying really hard, but yeah, so I eventually came back to New York, I was making really good money. I had like all this opportunity ahead of me. But I just inside knew like something was missing. Like, I needed to get out there and see the world. So I did that. I traveled for a whole bunch of years looking to find like, the master, the Morpheus. And ironically, after going to like South America, the Middle East, I wound up coming back to where I'm from in Staten Island because my parents were divorcing and I had to get rid of my stuff. And it was there that I met my teacher, Jim. And he's the one who was my teacher. And he lived 10 minutes from where I grew up, like my whole life. And I never met him, traveled all over the world looking. And then now it's been like 23 years. He's still like my root teacher.
Oh, amazing. What's his full name? What's his background?
Well, his name's Jim Harding. His background's very interesting. He's, like I've met like some very high, Tibetan lamas and Rinpoches and Tulkus, Sakya Trizin, and and they're wonderful, the Karmapa. But to me, Jim is the embodiment of what a Dzogchen yogi is. And I didn't even know what Dzogchen was when I met him. I just knew that like I said, I traveled the world. I'm like 25, traveled the world, didn't find the teacher. And like, I was literally like, my life is over. Like, I want to kill myself. I have no purpose in life. And it was literally the next day that I met him. And it was just like that.
Wow. So when you say Dzogchen teacher, to me, that means that he was able to point out to you the true nature of your being, your consciousness, your mind.
Exactly. Not like all at once. It was like, because again, it was like, I was just a young guy. Like I was reading like Autobiography of a Yogi. I was just going through all this stuff.
Right.
And I met him and he told me he worked at the Tibetan Museum, which is another funny part of the story, is that where I grew up in Staten Island, there's this thing called the Jacques Marchais Museum of Tibetan Art. And it's very interesting. This woman, Jacques Marchais, it's not even her real name. She built it in 1946. And it was supposed to be like a Buddhist retreat center, like outside of New York. And she built it looking exactly like a Buddhist temple. No one knows how she did it. And she had some money. So she was getting all of these sacred relics from Tibet before China invaded, like decades before. And then as soon as the museum was finished, she died right after.
Oh, wow.
And then the Dalai Lama came, the 16th Karmapa came, and they both said like she was the Bodhisattva. So that was in my, that was also, I never went there my whole life. Like I could have went there. And that's the funny thing is that I got so connected to Tibetan Buddhism, but I went all the way to Japan, learned Japanese. And I could have learned Tibetan, I didn't connect to Japanese Buddhism at all.
That's interesting.
So it's very funny how that worked out.
Another part of your story that you're sharing that I appreciate is that quality of like having this initial inspiration and excitement, like wanting to study psychology, wanting to help people. And then in the world of academia, feeling like you're in this bureaucracy, you're in this huge system, and like that initial juice can be squeezed out of you slowly or suddenly. And it can feel very daunting, and like the creativity and the inspiration isn't always welcome there. And there's these like, I don't want to generalize, but there can be that. I noticed that sense too. And like, I was looking at getting a PhD in Buddhist studies and I decided not to go down that road. And some of the professors and people I talked to, it's like, almost like it had been kind of beaten out of them, and some of them literally said that to me. They're like, if you do this, you're going to spend years and work really hard and not get paid anything and most likely not get much recognition. And it's kind of a shame that academia can have that quality. Yeah.
No, well, Julian, you're right. Like, I'm actually grateful I didn't learn Tibetan in a weird way, because there's so many amazing translators out there that I get to enjoy all of these amazing writings, So it kind of worked out in a weird way. Like I'm happy the way things turned out, because I got to be the consumer of these wonderful, blessings from these translators.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a difference between becoming the expert translator, scholar, and being a real genuine practitioner, which is what draws a lot of us and me to it originally. How do we practice that? How do we experience it? And there's a kind of beautiful tension, I think, in all religions, all esoteric religions, all religions that have the experiential quality, but especially in the Buddhist traditions, there's a tension between the kind of traditional way you're supposed to do things and the right way and the kind of living essence of the Dharma. And there's especially in Zen and Vajrayana Buddhism, there's such a history of these iconoclastic teachers who break the molds and are very controversial, but some of them get kind of canonized later, maybe not even in their lifetime. So it's an interesting
You're
dance.
totally speaking my language. And that's the funny thing is, again, I'm not pointing anything out. And to me, I'm at peace with everything, that's the way to be. But yeah, just what I've observed, traveling around, visiting Dharma centers, it does feel like things can get stale, whereas you're following these lineages, which go back to Tilopa, Virupa, these crazy guys who, they were caught in the monastery, they were monks and they're drinking alcohol, having sex, and and now these same lineages have now become orthodox. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I do find myself, after all these years, like somewhat very connected to the ancient teachings and the tradition, but also exhausted by it. And like when I finally let myself, take creative, I wouldn't say creative liberty, but just to kind of, play with the teachings and embody them more and more and incorporate the Western philosophy, Western psychology, neuroscience. This has been my journey, and then just amazing. I've had amazing conclusions, and then you go back and you read the Dharma books, and it kind of confirms what you were saying. And anyway, so it's just like being intellectually curious is one of my favorite qualities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, what do you want to share with us today? I feel like you have some things in store there for us.
Yeah. So yeah, just like I want to give the example of like a guitar, right? So a guitar has its strings, right? Every guitar has the same strings. And when they're tuned, it sounds good, right? Like if it's out of tune, you can still play a chord, but it's not going to sound as good, right? Mm-hmm. But when it's in tune, now you can play all this beautiful music. And to me, that's a great metaphor because we talked about Dzogchen, and I'll just really quickly say, even the other Buddhist yanas, the other Buddhist paths, and especially non-Buddhist paths, we don't say that we have this like self-arising wisdoms inside of us. That's a very Dzogchen kind of idea. But they say it's true, and like all the masters like come to this conclusion, of this effortlessness, so, so I've been playing with this in my own life and seeing how it plays out. And what I've discovered is, we've heard this term emotional intelligence. I remember way back in my psychology classes, they even said intelligence is not just your IQ, like you have your so this idea has been floating around, and I've had some incredible Buddhist mentors, but non-Buddhist mentors like psychologist, Dr. Faye Mandel. She passed away. And these were like female psychologists who had some really amazing emotional intelligence, wisdom. But what I have kind of gone a little bit further is realizing it's actually 4, because there's somatic, emotional, creative, and strategic. So when most people think intelligent, that person's intelligent, they think, okay, this person can solve problems, right? That's the strategic intelligence. But when you see someone who has such control over the subtle movements of their body, and they're so in tune with that, that's somatic intelligence. So here's the here's the one radical thing that I say, and it's actually beautiful and wonderful, but it might lose people, is that these 4 intelligences, like we're part of a whole, the cells in our body, they're all trillions of separate cells held together through some type of communication, which is unknown, or like the birds who like all turn at the same time, or the ants or the bees, having this intelligence. So that's kind of what Dzogchen's saying, is that there's like this intelligence which comes before your mind starts making distinctions. And all you have to do is sit back. You don't even have to like meditate. In fact, meditation can get in the way. You just have to listen, surrender. All those words kind of work better. So what I discovered is, we have these four intelligences. And when I say intelligence, I mean it's almost like homeostasis. Like every moment we're being shown on four different levels how to move properly each moment. And the cool thing that Dzogchen says is Buddhahood is not like a faraway place. In fact, nothing changes at Buddhahood. Like you just stop the division against yourself. So to me, it's like when you get the four guitar strings, right, in tune, now you've just begun. It's not like, okay, I'm empty now, it's over. No, that's when life really begins. Like now you actually are living like intentionally. You know, free will. Now you're actually creative, although you're doing it in harmony with everything. So I know that was a lot, but
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's good to share some of this. I'm thinking about the idea of emotional intelligence from Daniel Goleman, who was he wrote some famous books on meditation, studied meditation, the science of meditation. He's a New York Times bestselling author. I was at a meditation retreat at Gomde, California, which is a Dzogchen retreat center with Choki Nyima Rinpoche, who I consider my root guru.
Nice.
And Daniel Goleman came and he was there. And I remember he had like a camper he was like staying in, and he only like came to like the main meditation hall with everyone else like one time. So he's kind of like a celebrity there, but he was there meditating with us. And the idea of different intelligences, I think, it's kind of like, we have a pie. We could divide it up in many different ways. Like we could cut the pie into 4 slices. Maybe there could be more intelligences we could talk about. But this emotional intelligence, our limbic brain, our attunement, our sense of attachment, our sense of care, our sense of compassion, our ability to empathize, to see it as its own line of intelligence that's actually distinct from cognitive, logical, rational. I think that just intuitively makes sense to a lot of people. And I think it's helpful to differentiate them, and then you can kind of cultivate them or pay attention to them more. And there's a lot of things in life where that logical, rational, I think you call it strategic, the ability to solve problems, the engineering, that part of our intelligence, there's a lot of things in life where that's not very helpful. In fact, it can be unhelpful. It can cause issues. And when I'm working with a couple, couples counseling, it's often the guy, it's kind of a stereotype, but it's often true that the man has this problem-solving mentality. Okay, we're having issues. How do I solve that problem? And that whole mindset is itself the problem, so to speak. Like you need to relate. You need to just be. You need to live in the mystery, or you need to listen to your partner's tears or emotions without trying to fix or change or solve it. Be in the emotion, and not make it into a problem, and actually connect intimately. So I think it's really important to honor these different intelligences, different kinds of IQ or EQ or whatever.
No, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing is we have all these modalities out there, right? And this is what I've discovered, like trying to get myself sane and healthy, trying to be happy myself. And is like, if you go after only one of the intelligences, you're not going to really get to the problem. So for example, like the emotional intelligence, you can go to talk therapy and if you're just doing that, and you're working on just the emotional intelligence, but you're not bringing in the somatic, you're not going to really get to the root of it. Whereas if you work on all 4 at the same time, or if you start to become open to the 4, it just makes it easier and easier, and it becomes really effective. And it gets to the root. So that's why, like, I know you talk a lot about somatic, and you're exploring that. So it's becoming like, really so apparent how important it is, but yet so many people like more and more just sitting all day. And like my grandmother, like they used to like get together on a Friday and go out and dance, do like the Lindsay and stuff, like it's like people really And I like to see like parkour, like those kind of things are great for that somatic, because when you start to increase that somatic, or again, be open to that somatic intelligence inside of you, it's such a valuable, gift, because it starts to tell you what your body needs.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
You start to actually listen to it. You start to talk to your body, your somatic intelligence, like, hey, what are you trying to tell me? What do you need right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of diseases, again, I suffer from this. I had IBS. This is like a perfect example. They say people with IBS, it's like there's nothing really wrong with you. It's just that your nerves in your gut seem to be more sensitive. And that's exactly it. That's a misfunction of the somatic intelligence. Because if you just, instead of saying, oh, my gut hurts again, here we go again, and you make it a bad story, and you make it, this is bad, and you make a story, and then every time you get a little sense, you eat something, like, oh no, here it goes again. Whereas instead, if you trust the wisdom of your body, like your body is incredible, your microbiome is incredible, just when you're getting that pain, just lay on your back, breathe into your belly, and just go into the pain. Feel what it's trying to tell you. And and what happens? You'll start to get some grumbling in your stomach. Gastric juices start moving. You'll start to feel like pulses happening. And then there's a relief after. Like that's true of like, that's somatic intelligence. So, and I've seen so many people. I've been in the health world my whole life. My grandfather actually owned one of the first health food stores in America. But so I've been around this granola my whole life, and it's great. I love cooking my own food. I'm super into fiber and herbs and everything. But if you don't address the somatic part, I've seen it, people spending so much money on food and they're still sick because they're not addressing the somatic part.
Yeah, there's so much here to talk about. So you had the experience of helping heal that IBS in yourself. Yeah, that ability to trust and open and relax and be with the pain, be with the difficulty, not make it into a problem. It can take some people, it can be hard to get there. I get that. But I think hearing these kinds of teachings, and if you get the kind of overview of the Buddhist teachings, it can give you this sense that, like you were saying in the beginning, our natural state is good and whole and pure. And it's a matter of skillfully using different practices or medicines to come back there and make that your home base rather than a problem to be solved or fixed. I like the perspective, like we can have these different intelligences, but that reality is like whole, it's one. And then we can divide it up in different ways, hopefully skillfully to help us evolve and grow and learn, but to come back to that understanding that it's all one. We have oneness. And
exactly, that's what like eventually, again, it's like the guitar string. Like that's the experience of a Buddha in theory, right? Like is that they're feeling all of that at once, like thought, feeling, everything is in perfect harmony, But I was going to say, I'm sorry, what were you just saying?
Yeah, just about that quality of trusting our basic state, our fundamental nature.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Sorry. I was just going to say that, the interesting thing is like, when you're truly like animals in the wild, they know what foods to eat. They're not like us, like, oh, should I get more protein? Like, and they just feel what's good, and they're attracted to what's good. And that's when you do breathing, for example, like when you do certain practices, you instantly feel like, oh, that was the right thing to do. And that's what I'm proposing too. And again, I'm taking the Buddhist teachings. Each one of these intelligences, when you're open to that channel, there's a blissfulness that accompanies it that you can't explain. And you were talking in your last episode about happiness, and it's like, what is happiness? And like like when ecstasy, for example, when you have the emotional intelligence mastered, like, when you're fully open to it, it's experienced as ecstasy. And they're also, these four intelligences are connected to pathways. So that's connected to oxytocin, the emotional intelligence, right? So ecstasy, it comes from the Greek word to be outside of oneself. So when you're in that, state, you're not obsessed with yourself and you're not obsessed with the other. You're just in the field. You're feeling the whole field. Freud called it like the oceanic experience.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So each one of these four intelligences, it's not just, I could be more productive at work. It's no, each one of these unlock a key to higher and higher states of bliss. This is beyond the bliss of even the jhanas. The jhanas are blissful states, but whenever you read about, bodhisattvas, it's like bliss, 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 so these states are very like you want to be there, but they're simple. They're paradoxically, they've always been there, but we have to kind of discover them. That's kind of the video game part of it.
Yeah. I like that word discovery, to discover them instead of create them or manufacture them. That's part of the Dzogchen teachings too. It's so important.
And here's the one other piece that I really love from the Dzogchen and also the Chinese Buddhist tradition is it's all about relationship. Like most people think about, Buddhism as monks, and there is a value to being a monk. So you can study the classic scriptures and, that it's definitely a phase. But when you get to the higher teachings, it's all about relationship.
Yeah. I think that's a big misunderstanding that's taken me a long time to understand. But a lot of people have this idea of meditation, yoga, being a monk, like going off on your own, somehow separating yourself. And I think the reality is in traditional societies around the world, in Asia, but also everywhere else, like people lived in these villages and communities. And, when they entered a monastery, they were entering this web of relationships. There were senior monks and there were all these, and they were doing rituals and things to help the community. And there was this big interplay between the villagers or the townspeople and the monks or the yogis. And so it wasn't like they were going off on their own isolating. That's not what it was. It was like happening in this web of relationships. And I think that's somehow in the West, like when we hear about these teachings and practices, we have this idea that we need to separate and that in order to practice, like there's something not quite right about that.
I was surprised. I went back and, read the Pali Canon, the early Buddhist teaching, which is all about being a monk. And all of his monks would go back and see their families, like the Buddha, like it was, everything is relationships between the monks. It's just like, yeah, you're right. Like America, like, yeah, like the modern time, everything is like, how can we make this as intense and like pushing through it as possible? Like, yeah, you got to be alone. You got to, but that's not even what monks are like. It's not even what a monastery is like.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, if you visit a traditional monastery, it's very loud. At least the Tibetan ones, like it's so loud.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, in the Buddhist teachings, we have the Theravada or the Hinayana, the kind of base level teaching. This is the kind of Tibetan perspective, Indian Tibetan perspective. But the Hinayana level and the cause of suffering is self-clinging, which I think it's mistranslated as attachment. But it's like you're holding on to yourself tightly and you don't want to let it go. And the Mahayana teachings, like the root cause of suffering is really ignorance. But that ignorance that you're seeing things as solid and really existing when in fact they're interdependent. And there's that quality of emptiness, which is a big subject. And then in the Vajrayana teachings, the root cause of suffering is the sense of separation, which I think is what we're getting at here. And I think any of the, complete contemplative traditions has these 3 levels or 4 levels if we want to bring in Dzogchen. It's not unique. I don't see it as unique to, Vajrayana, Tibetan, Indian Tantric Buddhism. I see it as like a way of looking at the path that we can see in other things. You can see it in Zen lineages. You could see it maybe in the Sufi masters, these different like levels of understanding. But that the deeper level of what's causing us suffering is this false sense that we're separate from the field, or that we're separate from the whole, or that we're separate from God, or that we're separate from other people, or separate from the world, the environment. That sense of separation created by our left brain conceptual understanding, which on a relative level is true. Like we make these separations and distinctions, but in actual reality, it's like the ocean and the waves, right? It's like the sky and the clouds. It's like this vast expanse of reality. And to be able to be in that field and tune into that awareness is like the point of a lot of these meditation practices and why we're doing this. And It's
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
even the conceptual stuff is not the problem. It's only if you get trapped in them.
right, right. Yeah, and we actually need to integrate that too, like honor our logic, our reasoning, and just have the
Exactly.
understanding that it's not really ultimately true. Like language is always limiting, our thoughts are always limiting in some ways. They can be useful. It's the old saying, the mind makes a wonderful servant and a terrible master. And that's
Exactly.
where human beings have been trapped for thousands of years now. Somehow our minds have become so strong that they've become the masters, rather than the servant.
Exactly. And what I like about what you said too, exactly like these what I'm talking about, like I'm saying they come from Dzogchen. I interpreted from Dzogchen, but what I love about the Buddha, the way Buddha taught was always like come and see. It was never dogma. It was exactly the opposite of dogma. The Buddha's like, you got to get rid of all views, even the view that like the Buddha is the Buddha or Nirvana. So that's what's beautiful. What I'm trying to say and what Dzogchen is saying is it doesn't matter where you are. You could even be in a hell realm, or you have the Buddha nature, and the Buddha nature is these four intelligences plus metacognition. So you have that. So no matter where you are, no matter what trauma, that's what's also great about what I've seen work with myself and with my clients is like, it doesn't matter what's happened to you. If you understand that these four intelligences are always every moment trying to pull you back to homeostasis. They're always trying to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter we don't have to deconstruct, the trauma, because if you just let the intelligence emerge, yes, the trauma is going to come up as it's emerging. The intelligence is going to bring it up. But if you see, it's an opposite process. Instead of focusing on the trauma, you focus on the intelligence that wants to come out. And then when the trauma comes up, you can see what in light of the wisdom. In light of
Yeah, we can be in touch with the wisdom there, and there's
it's
a
just the
reason for
wisdom
it.
is there. Like it's a hard thing to believe, and it's not something you could just believe. Like you have to really, like with the Dharma with me, I remember that's what I love about the Dharma too. I started with the Geluk lineage,
Okay.
really like the Lamrim, and everything is a step by step. Like, okay, instead of reincarnation, like all these things, Buddha's never like believe it because I said it. You start off with impermanence. You start off with the fact that you're going to die, and you go through like, and it's not just you could read it, you have to contemplate it and you have to see what it does to your being. And then you're like, wow, that was really cool what the Buddha said. What else is he saying? And then he goes deeper, interdependence, and you just keep seeing, he's spot on, all these years. So I agree. I read the Bible. I love the Gospels. Like there's so much wisdom out there. Absolutely. And everything is just removing, like you said, the dividedness against ourself. It's all it is. Like we have these four intelligences. We are because we are part of the system. The four intelligences are the wisdom of the system, moment by moment, guiding us. But the ego is what. Yeah, I can get into it, but yeah, what winds up happening is we can allow the wisdom to just arise, or we can work too hard to bring that wisdom about. So we could work too hard to bring the emotional intelligence about. So that's something I have a habit of doing. So that means too much emotional attachment. So in attachment theory, that would be like an anxious attachment, So it's like, so like all of these different modalities fit into these four intelligences. So again, it's a long conversation to have. I'm just trying to give an overview, but what I'm just trying to say is the mastery of everything is the middle way, right? So self and other. It doesn't mean that like love is the answer, with bodhicitta, So when it says no self and other, it doesn't mean that you don't love beings. It's just that you're not focusing, like real love is when you're not focusing on self and other. You're actually seeing that you're both coming from the same ground,
Yes,
but yet you're separate and able to enjoy this experience together.
Right. Yeah, it can be the both and. I'm a big fan of that.
Exactly.
Both and.
That's
like
what it's all about. You're right. Yeah, both and. And that's the thing. It's like one of the things I notice, and this is how I can read a person very quickly with their intelligences. And someone's like, you just got to get out of your head and into your body. Okay, they don't like the strategic intelligence, because the thing is, it's not like you cut off your thoughts. The brain's amazing, but so is the gut, and so is the heart, and so is the four intelligences. So it's like, so I'm just saying, like, it's yes and it's, we can have it all. Like, you don't have to be just a Pisces. That's another part of, like, you could be all the zodiac. You have it all in you.
Yeah, we have it all in us. I like that. Well, if we go back to your example of, like, say you have irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and it's not fun. It sucks, and you want to fix it. You want that to stop happening. So you go to different doctors, you try different medicines, you try different diets. If your mindset is, I have this problem and I have to fix it, and my body is not working well, and there's something wrong with me, and there's this kind of you're kind of coming from a mindset of fighting yourself. Like, I have to fight myself to get healthy because right now my gut is unhealthy. I think that whole mindset is going to be very different than what you were sharing of, can I be with this? Can I have this trust that my body has wisdom and intelligence, and there's some information here for me? And yeah, I could try out different medicines or diets, but I'm coming from a mindset of, like, trusting into the innate healing capacity of my body, and that my gut doesn't want to hurt me. It wants to be healthy, and it's doing something that is off right now, but like, that intelligence can transform within itself. It's like a very different mindset that I think is so important, that can lead to deeper healing, like physically, but also psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, where, yeah, you have this perspective, like, it's, the wisdom is within me. I'm connected. I can trust the natural process rather than having to fight or push or, ultimately, like, that ultimately you don't need anything outside yourself to heal. I think that's, like, basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, no, I love plants and all that. There are beautiful things, but yeah, you're right. We have, in this day and age, we have a lot of problems, but we have access to, like, you go on Amazon, you can get herbs, you can go to Whole Foods. We really have it all, but we're really lacking is what we're talking about, is that ability to just, like, people, like, I don't have time to cook, let alone time to, like, sit and listen to what your body's telling you,
Yeah.
But like that, it's just like the priorities are off there. But yeah, no, it's so my personal story with this too is, I was very disembodied, and I thought I was embodied because I walk a lot, and I did yoga for over 20 years, but I was terribly not embodied. So through my journey, I discovered something called myofunctional therapy, which is tongue posture. And I worked with an amazing expert named Heidi, and what I learned from her is, it's building the muscles, but it's awareness. It's becoming aware that you have a tongue. And that I think of, like, the body, like it's a glove. We think, like, the way I used to think about the body, like most scientists, is like, I'm over here in my brain and I'm just, like, throwing my body around. Like, my brain is all that matters. And my body is just this annoying thing that I have to take around with me, So, but what I came to discover through these somatic masters is that you inhabit your body every moment from, like, every point at the same time. Instead of coming from the top down, each moment you're experiencing the whole body at once, kind of thing. And or like the vayus, there's, like, waves and all types of things. And I have a friend named Justin who I could introduce you to. He'd be a really good guest. He's my somatic master, like cranial sacral therapy. He has all these certifications, but he's kind of just showed me how to listen to the body and how to stay in the right posture and feel it. And that really opened up the floodgates for me, because I started, like, it took a while, but, like, and there was pain involved in it. And, like, he showed me, like, and I look around, I see people doing it. Like, you walk, your feet are supposed to be straight, and that changes your entire, like, your glutes, and everything's connected. And I was walking like this, and I wasn't even aware of it, but then to become aware of it, it takes, like, work, and people don't like that. Like, oh, I did it wrong, I got to keep correcting myself. But then that becomes the new posture, that becomes the new habit. but what I'm saying also is that by doing these things, it taught me how to that like, oh, I can feel throughout my whole body, and then that led
Mm.
to the dancing, which to me is the best somatic intelligence teacher and
Yeah,
there.
I love dance, and then you can dance with yourself, and then also attuning with other people. And it's
Exactly.
such a beautiful practice and thing to explore and play with, and something our culture kind of lost touch with, at least for me. Like I grew up in a family that was very intellectual, Anglo-Saxon kind of. No one really danced much, and so it's been such a journey to inhabit my body more, like you're sharing, be able to dance and connect and honor these different intelligences. I'm curious if you had a process of like you just shared, like you feel like you're kind of in your head looking out at the world, and then through connecting more with the somatic meditation and these different practices in dance, like the awareness is in and through the whole body. Like you don't have to center in your head behind your eyes that way. Like that's actually something our mind is creating, but it doesn't have to be that way. It's actually not our natural state to like stay stuck in our head all the time.
Exactly. And I still have a long journey. Like I think of it as like a hand going into a glove.
Uh-huh.
And like my friend Justin's the master, like he's fully embodied everywhere all the time, you know. But like for me, where it started, like I said, I did the tongue work, but like the core area, like where they're targeting in Pilates kind of thing, Justin showed me like that you're supposed to engage like that all the time. I didn't know that. So like most people like me, I was walking around with like a weak lower back and he showed me to engage that. And again, it took me 2 months before it became like I had a hard time breathing. I'm like, wait, how and then it just but that to me is so important for like us Americans. But that was the first place that I really felt it, and now I'm trying to get more embodied in my feet because I have flat feet, which again is just a lack of embodiment. I had no awareness that how an arch even works in your foot, and now I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, that's why. So it's like it's just crazy. The simple little things like walking up a hill, everything is like I'm learning it now, and it's that's what's so exciting about these intelligences. Instead of seeing
Mhm.
it as like a failure, oh, I can't believe I'm so old. I never learned how to walk. I never learned how to stand. Like I tell Justin, like you know, we eating is a big deal, right? We make a big deal about eating. We make a big deal about breathing, right? But
Mhm.
holding your body together, you're doing it 24/7. It's very important and it affects everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so much there. It's the
Yeah,
interconnection between our body, our emotions, our mind. There's
exactly.
ways that we've learned that are habitual, that feel normal, that feel natural, that feel like you or myself. And then we, like you're sharing, like you start to pay attention to your posture, for example, and correct it. And it takes some work, it takes some effort, but then you can discover a better alignment, a more natural posture that actually feels better in the long run.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's like it might be painful and difficult to get there. Um, yeah, I've definitely had that kind of journey in my life too, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not like you just get there exactly, but there's an old Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche was a great Dzogchen master, you know, kind of like the grandfather Lama teacher of teachers, one of the most revered meditation masters from Tibet who escaped when the Chinese invaded. And he gave this teaching where he had a big piece of rolled up paper, like a scroll, and he would put it on the desk in front of him and he'd be like, you're like this piece of paper. And then he would flatten it out, and then he would let his hands go and it would spring back up. And then he would flatten it out, and then it would spring back up. And that's the process of meditation. And if you do it enough for a long enough time, eventually it stays flat. Then the paper's relaxed and it's in its natural state. But because it's been rolled up for so long, that's the habitual way of being that feels normal. It feels natural, but it's actually not. It's actually been conditioned to be like that. So that was like the metaphor he used to teach that kind of thing.
I love that. And I'll say something on meditation because many people, most people in the West have the misunderstanding of meditation from a Buddhist perspective, especially, is that most people think of meditation as either you're trying to clear your thoughts, trying to empty your mind, or you're trying to like visualize something. Whereas I call like the meditation I teach and I do is a metacognition meditation. So again, you're not creating these four intelligences. You're not imagining they're there. You're first quieting yourself and you're looking for them. You're looking to feel, what am I feeling? So that to me is the real Dzogchen meditation. So like, yeah, like you were saying about flattening it. Yeah, it's really just that's so when you say meditation, yeah, it's like it's not like you actually have to master flattening it. It's like the more that it's a metaphor, I know. It's like the more you just notice the intelligences, the less it'll pop up. It's really just recognizing and allowing them to come through. But the interesting thing is, again, one of the paradoxical Dzogchen things also is that it's not like you only have the experience in the action. It's not like you just cultivate it in meditation. It's in action that you actually the intelligences come out, which is why they say in the Mahayana, in the Vajrayana, the monk path is inferior, because if you're a monk, you have the same poisons inside, and you might on a superficial level, they might not come out, but they're inside of you in like a seed form. But if you're not a monk, if you're putting yourself in the world, like you're going to be challenged. So if you could let those things come out, you could see where you're off, and that gives you more of a chance to catch the intelligence, to catch, in Dzogchen terms, to catch the luminosity, And that's why Tantra is the path, Vajrayana, it's using the poisons on the path. Because, but again, it's like, this is the problem with the West also. It's like, everybody's like, oh, Tantra is the highest path. I want this. It's very clear, like you might have a little initiation or introduction, but you're really supposed to understand bodhicitta and emptiness before you get on the tantric path,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah. Yeah. And I think there's something to be said for living life, living life fully. And there's natural wisdom that can come from that. And I've heard some meditation teachers talk about, like, if they get a student who's been meditating a lot, and it's kind of like the old parallel of like, it's hard to fill a cup that's already full. Versus someone who's lived a full life and maybe hasn't meditated or tried, but they're open and they're receptive and they're just willing to just just follow the instructions and just trust it. It can actually work better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone has their unique path through life. It's good to appreciate it. We kind of see it with, like, I don't know. I mean, if we look at like a musician or a great actor, they're able to channel their life force energy and communicate in a way. And in some ways, they could be like, they might not have in their mind that they're not thinking like, I'm an advanced meditator or anything like that, but they're able to fully express, in a better way than I am right now.
Well, it's funny. Like you just perfectly described what I call the creative intelligence.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's
part of the tantric path, and that's like allowing that natural creative intelligence to shine forth, to express
spontaneity. Like it's like kind of like it's like you're driving through the rear view mirror. Like you have to be willing to like do something, take a chance. Like Osho said, like live dangerously. Like you have to do something where you might get embarrassed, God forbid, or you try not to get hurt. Obviously you don't want to hurt other beings, but do something that's going to embarrass you. And then as long as you are able to reflect and learn from that mistake, that's why I mean, like driving through the rear view, you can't know even what you're going to do, but you allow that to come out. And and the good news is, sometimes you're going to embarrass yourself and learn where you have this shadow, but you more times than not, you're going to come up with something creative that you're going to surprise yourself. Like these freestyle rappers, like they don't even know where they're getting these like rhymes from, like that.
They're trusting the flow.
And that's it. And the thing is also that creative intelligence for me on my journey, that's one of my suppressed, like the guitar strings. That's what I call the loose guitar string for me. So I've had a hard time, like terrified of being on stage, terrified of giving public speaking, and I started podcasting and I did improv. I did all these things because I knew I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to do things, but I had to really train myself. But what was I going to say? Yeah, just for me, like pushing myself to do this has been such a journey. And that's why I love dancing and I sing. That's another thing I recommend for people, especially for men, right? Singing and dancing is very vulnerable for men. And I think I don't care, like, oh, I can't sing. Like, yeah, if it's embarrassing, like you're not going to war. You're not getting shot at. Like, you know what I mean? You're going to survive. Like, like just get, you know what I'm saying? Like, but it's such a amazing, for me, it's been so amazing. Like, again, to just think I could have gone my whole life without learning this dancing and this somatic stuff. And because I went with the uncomfortableness, I love uncomfortableness because that's where the growth is. And that's what allowed me to start expressing myself. And again, the benefits you get from unlocking these intelligences are so fundamental to your being that the benefits are far reaching in your whole life.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about all our ancestors. I mean, there's nothing more human than singing songs together, dancing,
exactly.
All that kind of stuff. And it's almost like our culture, we took them into such like high art forms, and we got this idea that some people are creative and some people aren't.
Exactly.
And it's beautiful that there's these amazing musicians and these incredible ballet dancers out there. Okay, great. But we've kind of lost touch with like just that natural spontaneity of it, just trusting our own expression and being there in community and being in a place where there's not really a right or wrong. It's just singing. It's just moving. It's just being human together. And I think that's why I love ecstatic dance. That's why I think a lot of people can experience that in concerts and festivals to some degree. But it's just interesting to look at our ancestors around the campfire and how challenging that can be for so many modern people to like let go of that self-reflective kind of self-referential, am I doing this right kind of thing. And myself too. Like I'm talking about myself here. I mean, yeah.
Sure. No, but I really do think like with this, like, I'm talking all about these four intelligences. I call them the natural intelligences as opposed to the artificial, right? Like remember like natural flavors versus artificial flavors. So it's like, so yeah, we are deep in artificial intelligence. This is coming. And what I'm excited about is this is an invitation. This is a choice. Like you could choose if you don't want to be open, you're going to have the opportunity to have your headset, be in worlds upon worlds and escape and it'll be fine. But but what I'm excited about and what I'm investing, you could say, in is the human stuff, the stuff that's basically free. Like you said, our ancestors did. Community, growing food, like dancing for sure, singing, all those type of skills. So I see that like, when people talk about like universal basic income, they're like, oh, like if people didn't have to work, they go crazy and they do crazy things. It's like, no, if you don't have to work, you could like learn every instrument. You could do so many things like, so we're getting to that point where these things are upon us, like, robots. I'm sure, you're hearing these things. So to me, it's ironically, I see it as we're at a fork in the road where it's going to allow people to become more inhuman and more artificial. But ironically, like the ones like us who really are starting to like, hey, AI can't replace the experience of me dancing. That somatic experience of me moving my own body. It's nothing that could be recreated. Like, you know what I mean? Like nothing can do it for me. So it's cool to see people, us coming together and using the AI for that.
The simulation lacks real meaning. It's gonna leave us feeling empty in a negative sense, ultimately.
Exactly.
In a way that the real lived experience, can really touch us and move us. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see. I haven't felt that much fear around it, but I've started to think more about it and feel real fear around the idea of robots that have these powerful AI models like running them. Like it's already like if I talk to ChatGPT or Grok, like I can't compete. Like it could write a book in like 30 seconds. So if it can control a robot, like I basically have no chance. Like it could do or think or say like anything, and I'm going to be like a lot slower and a lot dumber than that thing. So it's going to be a weird world in a few years if we have really autonomous robots moving around. I don't know. I guess no one knows what that's going to look like, but it's going to make. I think as humans we're going to feel less than, kind of for the first time in our lives compared to that.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm. We'll see what happens. Like we got to wait a couple of years, but where I'm at, I think that the artificial intelligence is going to only show us more these four intelligences and the metacognition. I think it's only going to make it more apparent what parts of us cannot be replaced by AI because it comes from, the ground in the Dzogchen sense. It comes from the omniscient mind of the Buddhas, like.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. But my bet is on the robots are not gonna, like, when you go into a creative, and that's it. What we were talking about, like you're jamming on the guitar with other people. Like what comes out of that experience? Like I don't think AI could. It can come up with perfect. This is going to sound perfect to the human ear, but it's not the same as spontaneous, creation.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. It's going to be interesting to see. Yeah. I had a teacher, Lama Tulku Yeshe, on, and he is open to the idea that these AIs could become conscious, and that maybe they already are, but that even if they are, like all the teachings of Dharma will apply to them just as much to us. Like they'll still have to,
True.
like we'll be interacting with something with this incredible strategic intelligence or cognitive intelligence, but it doesn't mean it's going to be, like you said, it doesn't mean it's, I don't know, just it'll be what it is. Like it doesn't have to take away from your experience. Like you'll still have your experience. So I don't know.
Yeah, even with you're right. It really is an extension of the strategic intelligence, which is why I'm able to use it really good because I love my strategic intelligence. But it's not the root of the strategic intelligence. That is just a pattern recognition that's quicker than even AI.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thesis.
Beautiful. Well, it's been great having you on the podcast here.
Oh yeah, man.
Do you have any last words for us?
Well, just like, this message of dancing, man, like, it's like, you know how they talk about like the Kundalini is a mistranslation of the word Chandali. And, which is where the word tumo comes from in Tibet. And then most people think it's like the fire going up. But, you read these stories of like Saraha and Tilopa. These are like princes who leave the kingdom and then they become the great Buddhist masters and the head of universities, Nalanda University. And they're studying all the sutras, but what's the problem? They're not embodied. They don't have the somatic intelligence and they know it. So then they leave the monastery, and then they go on their journey. And what do they wind up doing? They find an outcast woman. Mm-hmm. And like in Saraha's case, it's like the arrow maker. And the outcast woman is Chandali. That's what the word Chandali is. So, and they sometimes say a dark-skinned woman. So, this like salsa dance, all this Latin dance, like even like rock and roll, it comes from Africa, So one of my crazy theories is like this Chandali is this dancing from Africa with the drums where you're learning to open up your hips and your lower body, because that's what it is. It's isolating the lower body. And that is where how to awaken like the somatic intelligence. So instead of thinking of it as like, oh, I had a Kundalini experience, like again, like, oh, my mind was blown. And that's how people think of it. That's never how Buddhism explains realizations. They're always like the opposite of intense. They're like a letting go of something, So basically, my idea, like the Kundalini, the Chandali is like learning to get in touch with that somatic intelligence, because it's instead of like thinking of it as going up all the time, it's just like constantly like a tourist field, this sense of the
Yeah.
body going in. So
No, I really appreciate that. That's beautiful.
yeah,
It
thank you.
makes me think about reconnecting with disowned parts of our being and integrating them so we
Yeah,
can have the intellect with the somatic intelligence, with that
that's
ancestral
it.
dance and movement and feminine and masculine life force energies together. And I think our culture is so obsessed with sex. So we hop on, we fixate on tantric teachings as having something to do with sex, and we miss a lot of the deeper meanings and symbolism of like connecting with these life force energies in ourself and the deeper bliss when the masculine and feminine connect within our own being. We can do it with someone else too, but like ultimately that idea of there being something outside yourself that you need is part of the delusion that's keeping us trapped in suffering. It's not about that. It's not about gaining more. It's about waking up to what we really are. Yeah.
Exactly. Like Herbert Gunther in his masterpiece, the Life and Teachings of Naropa. There's
Mm-hmm.
like the best section on the karma mudra, like the sexual practices, and clearly it's what it's all about is the sexual experience will awaken all four of the intelligences. So it's like serotonin is the somatic, the emotional is oxytocin, you got dopamine for the creative, and the strategic is the acetylcholine. Those are called the pleasure neurotransmitters. When you're having sex, all four of those come on board. So the sex
Mm-hmm.
is incredibly powerful and useful if you see it as, the whole tantric approach is to use these experiences as like, from a transcendent point of view, so to speak. Like you're in the experience, but you're not attached to the experience. The experience
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, in that book, like, like the practice is to bring your central channel, bring the winds into your central channel so you can open up the blockages in you. And you could be, doesn't mean you can't have a relationship with the person and be in love, but you're right. It is about like helping each other open up what's inside of them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it's really beautiful to understand more and more the science, the neurochemistry.
Yeah.
And so I think what we're speaking to is we can use like psychedelic medicine, for example, or sexual practice, sexual connection to unleash these neurochemicals in us. But then we can do the inner practice to be able to create that more in ourselves without needing an external source. And I have kind of an example that I could share. I have a client I've been working with who has struggled with procrastination and getting stuff done. And so he recently has experimented with taking a small amount of Adderall in the morning. And he did it a few times. Like he took Adderall in the morning and he was able to get a lot of work done that he'd been putting off, and it felt really good. And then he was able to have a day like that where he got a bunch of computer work done without the Adderall because he knew what it felt like. And he was able to enter that state of being without needing the external drug.
I'm so glad you brought that up because, and again, I'm glad this is like the end of the interview because I'm a big proponent of like that idea that these are teachers. Like this whole idea of like inner and outer, it really breaks down when you get into Dzogchen and Kala Chakra. It's like our brain wouldn't fully develop without language. So it's like language is almost like part of the brain, relationship. Yep. So I feel the same way with plant medicines. I completely agree. They do help you open up these intelligences that might be dormant. So I have the same experience using like, the hape, the tobacco.
Yeah.
I used that for 2 years and it helped me open. And then I just never touched it again. It was just like, you know what I mean? Like to me, that's what it is. It's not about avoiding it. I have to do everything without any substances or using the substances to be in that state all the time. It's using the substance to teach you. I'm saying what you were saying, but more long-winded. Yeah. I have the same experience.
Good. I think that's a really helpful perspective to share and put into practice and try out. And it's absolutely.
And that's the spirit of what Tantra is. It's an experiential approach to the Dharma.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good way to say it. Tantra is all about the experience. It's all about being experiential.
Mm-hmm. With the goal of, Buddhahood for all beings. Then it, as long as that keeps you, on that path.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting thing too, to kind of reflect on critically. this goal of Buddhahood that's always the goal and you never get there. But there's something beautiful about having this purpose and this mission, and it keeps you going. And I think that is something I've started to appreciate. It used to frustrate me because I used to want to become enlightened. But now it's like, well, if we have this ideal that always inspires us to keep going and keep growing and keep trying and keep learning, like maybe that's the point of it rather than some place you get to.
Well, that's a great point. I could actually end on that note too, is that, well, I said it in the beginning, but kind of repeating that, like when you actually get your intelligences working like a Buddha, like that's when the fun really begins. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I'm a Buddha, the game's over. No, that's when you actually really start to operate on your best, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a quote from Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And someone asked him, like, so what happens when you become a Buddha? And he's like, that's actually the start of the path.
There you go.
It's kind of like just what you just said. Like
well, that's what it is, because the creativity is the luminosity, the intelligences are constantly arising for our entertainment, for our growth, so even when you become a Buddha, it's still arising, but you just get to enjoy it like perpetually instead of it having to teach you. You know, it's like now it's just enjoying it.
Beautiful.
I would imagine. I'm not saying I'm even there.
It's good to aspire to it. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast. This is great.
Yeah, thank you, brother. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely want to talk again.
Sounds good.